Thank you very much. Yeah, it's lovely to be here. As Pete mentioned, I'm Dan Moore. I'm the Modelling and Texturing Supervisor for the Mill London. Again, as you said, I'm a NCCA grad from 2007. So yeah, it's really nice to be back here. So today I'm going to be talking about one of our Cif commercials. It's a fully animated character piece. Obviously, it sells Cif washing up liquid, but we try and make all of our stories fit into stand on their own rather than just necessarily being a commercial. Everyone hopefully remembers them for their stories. The reason why we've chosen to present this is because it's not necessarily something that the mill is known for. So just to show you kind of what we are known for and why it's so different, I'm just going to show you the mill show reel. Hopefully kind of shows you. So as you can see, that's kind of pretty live action heavy. Sorry, stamp all over the applause. Yeah, so it's all pretty live action heavy, whereas what I'm going to be speaking to you about today is kind of our Cif Sleeping Beauty piece. And I'll just play that for you now, just so you can kind of see what the piece of work I'm talking about.
How Cif helped Sleeping Beauty shine. Sleeping Beauty was rudely awakened. Her prince was arriving. Things were looking good, but the floor less so. With no time to fill a bucket, she summoned new Cif Express floor cleaner with its powerful cleaning agents. Applied directly from the bottle, the dirt disappeared quickly and the beauty returned, leaving her time to be reawoken by the prince. New Cif Express, always a beautiful ending, quickly.
So, as you can see, it's a very different piece to the things we're generally kind of traditionally known for. What was exciting for us was that it was directed by Mill Plus, which is our in-house group of directors, designers, creatives. So Jamie Lancaster is a former 3D artist, animator himself, took on the director role for this, led the pitch, won the job. So it was a really important piece for the Mill, because we kind of had we were able to put our mark on it from the idea all the way through to the final delivery. So the time frame for one of these jobs, it's 9 weeks. The whole thing, start to finish, from concept through to final delivery, was 9 weeks. Eventually it took up 23 artists, so that's concept, 3D and 2D. And we actually worked concurrently. The 3D team started concurrently with the concept team, so they worked really collaboratively, working out concepts first in 2D, then in 3D, and then reworking them in 2D, and constantly trying to up the performance of each department, trying to deliver the best piece of work that we possibly could. So the main thing, every commercial needs a story. Whatever it's selling, the story is the most important thing. With a commercial, we were trying to put across this the traditional idea of a fairy tale. That was the idea from the agency. So we looked into everything that fairy tales traditionally have. The traditional story arc for a fairy tale is there's a problem. Suddenly eventually there's a solution, and then we all know the term happily ever after, and obviously that comes from the traditional story arc. Unfortunately, in the commercials, we have to fit this all into a 30-second piece. So, hopefully, by constantly reevaluating the edit and the animation and the way the story is being told, we can put across all of those key points and make it into what we traditionally call a fairy tale in 30 seconds. So, what we used was a kind of visual shorthand. So things that have been ingrained in us, like every film we've ever seen, every book, all the fairy tales that we've ever heard from children. We use those conventions, whether they're conscious or not, to try and ease the story and kind of allow the viewer to really kind of get involved in the story, even though it's happening over a very short period of time. So, for the starter point, the opening of the book, if you reference, obviously these are all the old the Disney pieces and the Dickens piece. This is the opening. We've all seen this kind of motif so many times that we instantly know that we're about to be told a story. Chances are that there's something fantastical that's going to happen, and we kind of accept that because this opening just tells us it's going to be a fairy tale. It opens the idea to the possibility that anything could happen, and when kind of finally magic does happen, then we'll accept that as part of the story. So, this is something that we've kind of has been ingrained in us. So you can see here that's the framing, the kind of we use this as our establishing shot. So you can see that even though it's it's delivering, so we've got delivering on a brand, so the Cif logo's in there. It's telling the start of the story, and actually also it's showing us where it's all about to happen. So even the design, which kind of went through several iterations, shows us about the kind of final tower at the end. Everything leads round to the kind of hero environment, if you like. And hopefully this kind of this pulls the audience in to what is, the start of a fairy tale. And again, we've all seen this iconic imagery before, so it's definitely worth drawing on when you have maybe a very short space of time to, we see one person kneeling down by another, someone lying down. We see that as an iconic pose. We kind of expect romance. We're almost expecting a kiss, whether it happens or not. You kind of draw someone into that moment, and that's kind of mirrored in our end shot. It's a classic pose that everyone's familiar with, and it just helps tell the story without having to use extra shots to kind of convey them. It means everyone's already expecting the kiss before it needs to happen, and in this case, it's actually just a cup of tea. So it's got a British end to rather than the kiss. What we were obviously really excited about was the opportunity to design a full set of characters, a full set of environments. We went out and we kind of got reference from all over the place, and obviously this is a whittled down version of all that reference. The director obviously has the first he collects this reference for us. As artists, we obviously try and add to that reference and try and create a kind of fully rounded character based on the reference that we all know. Like, so we're taking a cue from one of the characters in this image and another part of them in this image, and then we try and obviously put that together into 3D. We were kind of originally given the brief of it's definitely, the look of it is definitely more Tim Burton than it is Disney. So you could see that in the muted color palettes, the kind of low saturation, and that kind of generally works for the payoff moment as well. And again, this is the male character. Reference of face shape, different styles of face, starting to look into the uniforms and the kind of general demeanor. We use all this stuff for expression. We use all this stuff for just trying to find a look. I mean, this one like I said, the 3D team and the 2D team worked almost on top of each other to try and get the best result. So you can see, quite to start with, quite a different spread of of possibilities. And again, so we had I think 4 or 5 concept artists, just given free rein to just try and come up with characters, male and female. You can see the very different looks that they're trying to experiment with. They all fit with a kind of a hero and ended up being called princess. So I'll call them a princess for now. We use all that reference that we saw before and and plenty more of it, just to really inform how we're used to seeing heroic characters or I suppose not Disney princesses, but So even down to in the bottom right-hand side or on the full of the right-hand side, you can kind of see that it's starting to get into looking at her expressions and trying to allude to her general demeanor as well. So we're trying to get across the fact she's got like a bit of attitude. She's not just a damsel in distress. She's like her own person, she's quirky, she's, you know, we're all trying, all of these exploration drawings are trying to get that across as quickly as possible, and the amount of, I mean, this is just a very small number of the sketches that were done for it. But you can see the kind of breadth of the breadth of how the characters were kind of explored, really. Slowly being whittled down towards this, the larger eyes, you know, that both characters end up having. You know, there's a lot that kind of carries through even from the sketches that aren't necessarily the final piece. I mean, obviously you can see you know, it's getting closer to the final Prince character. And again, we're just trying to look into all the, you know, how she should move, you know, really bring across her character, because that is, you know, that's, with the story, that's really important as to say that she's not a damsel in distress, she's totally in control. So, you know, her poses, her key poses, are so important for getting across her character in this, and we need to keep this character as a living, breathing thing. So, you know, even though, and if you see in the edit, you know, most of the shots only allow for kind of one key pose because it's a lot of information to put through into 30 seconds. So those poses become so important. So you see, we're constantly evaluating against, I mean, you can definitely see the princess starting to come out of the left-hand drawing, how she might react with the props around her. And still looking at the heroic proportions of the male. Once you start to get kind of close to the overall look, then it's just constant, you know, exploration. So, you know, you can kind of see that the face, you know, bar the end one doesn't necessarily change hugely, but the amount that the hair design and you know, the styles change their attitude and the look of the characters so much. And again, this is probably just a snippet of all the possibilities that were looked at. And again, hairstyles. It really does make a huge difference. In this case, the base shape, obviously, of the head is exactly the same head. And we've just tried to just keep exploring what do the different shapes mean. We're looking for the silhouette that kind of portrays her character. And this is all 2D exploration. So we just get one of our the concept guys just to quickly explore all the different possibilities. Because obviously, like I said, the compressed timescales just mean that we have to try and get through as many possibilities as possible so we can, you know, hopefully hit the right one, being led by both the director and the client. So at this point, you've got the princess character, who's, you know, I think we're pretty much set on, and they're starting to kind of have a look at her costume. Whereas at the moment, the prince character, you know, they don't currently seem like they're in the same world. You know, they don't necessarily have any similar features at this point. So at this point, they kind of went, you know, kind of put the princess character design, you know, to one side and started to work in 3D. So that is a design sculpt that one of the modelers did. You know, you can see even the hairstyle's being roughed out in ZBrush. All of this is probably just like a ZBrush sculpt. To get, again, we're trying to portray character, we're trying to portray, you know, all the details that, you know, we see in the design and just try and make sure they work in 3D. At one point we had, because of the large head and the small neck, you know, it's very difficult to get someone to not look like they've got a massive jaw, and that kind of really takes away from the delicateness of her character. You know, so getting into 3D was just so important, and getting into 3D early. You know, it allows everyone to look at what the final model is going to look like, and you know, using a sculpting package just so quickly allows you to make the changes and to continue to evaluate that character and experiment on different possibilities or different looks, or and the speed of those changes is so important when working in commercial. And while everything else is going on, they start to actually block in the real hair. At this point, we're trying out a different hair plugin. So it was both a technical exercise and a look dev exercise. So we're kind of trying to get the hair to work as well as we could, up close, where there's no hiding. This is I think one of the tests, maybe not the final style. But having that asset in 3D and having that time to just explore these different options for how to create the hair was invaluable to the team. So we're starting to look at both characters together. We're trying to keep them in the same world. Constantly looking at their costumes. You can kind of continually see that there's a theme of hearts and spirals and just general curves and teardrops that go through the whole, both in the environment and the characters. So her neck piece is a teardrop, and the shape of her bodice, heart-shaped, and the cut lines of her dress. They all carry through into the environment. They're all trying to make sure that these people feel totally at home in the environment that we design for them. You can see that at this point, the decision was made that the prince was looking a little bit like RoboCop. So it was just decided that actually he should look a little bit more regal, a little bit more traditional. This is a head exploration. So again, this is how I was saying that the 2D and the 3D work so closely together. So the 3D sculpt comes out, and then we have one of the concept artists paint over it. Goes back to the artist that modelled it. We get that really fast turnaround, and hopefully a fast sign off, and we can put the character into rigging or fully rigged. So yeah, as I was saying, we're constantly evaluating each of the characters. What does face shape mean? On the far left, you can see he looks like a boy, and further along, he's kind of looking a little bit more rugged. Didn't do a fully bearded option. But it's quite surprising for a visual effects team, I think. You can see the differences that were made in the first two images, just to really kind of ground that character. And he's not a boy. It's not a tale of young love. He's definitely older. It's just tiny little tweaks all the way through. So it was really important to actually really establish his character early on. Otherwise, you might be changing this when the character's already rigged, or when the renders start to come out. So as I was saying, we started to look at a much more regal option for his clothing. Again, you can see all the spirals and in his stomach piece, and the way the cut lines go, they're instantly of a similar fashion. This is all thought about, and all of them all the characters are looked at next to each other just to make sure that they stay and remain within the same world. And this is the final turntable of the prince. He looks quite considerably like the guy that modelled him, as it turned out, but I'm not entirely sure which way around that went. This has obviously gone through look dev. The materials that were used would have been being developed in tandem to the models. And the materials themselves would have been picked to make sure that they fit into the same world. And this would be the final princess model. So this continues into the environment, and again, we're trying to keep consistency in the idea and the design ethics. You can see the kind of reference that we brought in just to try and, you know, make this a really fantastical world, but, you know, by the end of it, the idea was simplification. So curves, simple, you know, simple shapes. You can see some of our initial concept drawings. You can see, you know, everything's curved. Everything is this kind of has a teardrop or a heart or a spiral. You know, this is the real motif that we had traveling through the whole piece. And again, from here, I mean, this is probably one of the earlier sketches, but from here, everything was kind of reined in. It was simplification. It was trying to make shapes that were really easy to read. You know, these environments just didn't seem to fit with the simplified characters that we'd created. And again, you can see the consistent motifs of the heart shapes and the spirals. But all of these try and, I mean, you can see the contrast between the thorns. So, you know, you've got a lot of straight lines and shapes. You know, this is you know, instantly tells us that these aren't, you know, one thing isn't friendly to the other. And then we start to look outside into the opening shots. But these are all kind of as quickly as possible put together, just put in front of the director and put them in front of the client so that we can get an idea of the kind of thing we're thinking of, or they can get the idea of what we're thinking of, and, you know, we can really truly establish what their priorities are. So again, this is the interior of her room, and again some more color palettes. Again, these kind of all got muted back and simplified. So you can see that on the way in some of these images. But again, you can, you know, constantly see the teardrops and the heart-shaped motif all the way through. In the props, everything was considered, even down to the hero mop at the end. And, you know, you can see that the final mop, which is the concept on the right, you know, maintains some of the cut lines, the same cut lines as the prince's character on his uniform, and the same cut lines that you find in a lot of the environment. So, you know, really trying to tie those elements all together. And then we start doing render tests, and you can see this is quite an early one because of the noise, but, you know, just to get a feel of how it's going to be inside, and you know, to look at the problems that we're likely to face when we're actually rendering the full thing. You know, we always try and get a version of the character, of the environments on the farm and out again, just to test our pipeline. Again, this is a close-up of the mop prop. You can kind of see the detail that we've gone into, and again, how it fits in with all the rest of the characters and environments that we've created. I think it's fair to say, like with all of our work, we took a lot of pride into all the tiny little details. So, you know, the princess's shoes, which you see under the bed, and you see in the close-up when you realise that the room's a mess. You know, this is kind of how high detail we go into. So fully sculpted, you know, fully detailed. You know, almost hero pieces in themselves. And then a quick design of the fairies that bring in the solution of the Cif bottle. And obviously, having designed the princess, we tried to use the same or a similar asset. So the base of her and the princess will be basically the same. And then change of hairstyle, which would have probably gone through the same number of iterations to try and get her character. You know, later on, I'll kind of point out that even the tiara, the hinges in the room where she closes the door on the bucket, mop and bucket, it uses the same shape. So like everything, we tried to tie everything together to kind of keep it in the same world. And all these nice little posed turntables really try and inform you know, before we've got it rigged and before we've got it moving, really inform as to the character. and there's obviously the magic that, obviously, considering it was a commercial for Cif, there was obviously a large importance placed on the dirty to clean or the dark to light transition. So, having had this storybook opening and the rest of the fantasy motifs that have gone through, we needed to throw in a bit of fantasy action to deliver the final solution. Easing transitions. So, Jamie, the director, as we went through the lighting and all the setup, these frames would have gone backwards and forwards between the concept guys and the lighter renderers at this point. Trying to establish the look, trying to establish, further establish the palette. We'd have been doing test grades all the way through, and you can see on the right-hand side you've got this big thorny patch, basically a dark shape, and all the light coming from the top left. You can see that in the next shot, exactly the same. The idea is that you're changing environments quite quickly. In a 30-second piece, we've had to put in quite a lot of information. So, the best way is to try and ease the eye of the audience as much as possible. So we try and keep a lot of consistency in the frame. So, we have the similar shapes that are being delivered by the lighting or by some of the environmental pieces around. And you can see, again, this is the next shot. So the idea is, although we've changed environments 3 times, basically, the general mood of the frame isn't, the lighting's not bouncing left and right all over the place. It's keeping consistent. So, it eases the viewer's eye into seeing what they're sort of viewing what's actually in the frame, rather than necessarily kind of worrying about what's changed and where they are in the shot. Again, every shot we try to give clues to where this is going to go. You can see the dirt in the background. You can see the mop and bucket. There's the hero shoes I'm talking about in the previous shot. Previous shot, you can see the shoes on the left-hand side. Whether this is conscious that you notice it or not is, we try and kind of aid the viewer's ability to know where in the room they are, just by keeping those elements in similar places or in the places that we're about to take them. So again, you can see, like, you know exactly where you are in the room. The bed's in the background. You're now staring at the mop and bucket, which was seen in the previous shot. Obviously, we're kind of keeping the curves and spirals motif. And then, where this is the end of the dark to light transition, so the magic has happened. And what we're actually saying, the teardrop windows that the fairies came through with the magical Cif product. There in the background, you see the mirror in the top left, and that's where we're going next. So we're constantly trying to keep all of these things in the eye, whether it's conscious or not. The bed's out of focus in the background, so we're kind of always placing the elements to try and kind of help the viewer with the geography of the room. And again, you can see the mirror in the background. This has probably been kind of moved around in shot to try and deliver the best possible framing. This shot, which you obviously saw right at the beginning, this had to be done quite early, or at least to a kind of rudimentary standard, because they actually took the previous version of it onto set and lined up the camera exactly with the end of that chaise longue. So again, trying to ease the eye of the viewer all the way through, the same curves. Same curves all the way through. And again, even with the furniture, they've tried, as much as possible to to show that, you know, the curved lamp on the right, you know, all the curved furniture, that's a choice that they've made, or that the director made, to ease the story. And again, you can see, I mean, this is the final graded piece, so we can really see the travel from dark through to light. We can see, you know, the problem, and we can see the solution, which is punctuated by this, you know, very saturated product, and then, you know, the happily ever after comes into this fully light zone. So, you know, at no stage do we ever forget the story that we're trying to tell. And this leads on to the next piece, which I'm only going to show you, and this is going to be the end. But I just wanted to make you aware that this is hopefully an ongoing piece of work. You know, we use these characters, and we use the characters that have been developed again and again, and we have a certain amount of time to tell this story. The book ending and the pack shot at the end are always going to be a certain amount of time. So the Curse of the Streaks was cut down to ended up being a 20-second commercial. So we ended up having maybe 15, 16 seconds to tell all of our story. But using these motifs and continually looking for the shapes in the shot to try and ease the viewer's eye, we hopefully make it feel like it's a longer, less kind of rapidly cutting piece. Makes it feel a little bit more gentle, and like the fairy tales we know. So this is just the latest one that's only recently been aired.
How Cif broke the curse of streaks. The princess cleaned and cleaned, but horrid streaks cursed her bathroom until she summoned Cif, Power and Shine. Cif banished all the limescale and streaks. For 100% streak-free shine, there's always a beautiful ending with Cif, Power and Shine.
And that's it. Has anyone got any questions? Stunned silence. If anyone's got any HR-based questions, obviously. Oh, sorry, Alex. Not really, no. I think the hero actress was used as part of the reference process. I think the hairstyles definitely kind of went, they were working concurrently. But we were delivered, Cif have got previous commercials that we obviously had to look at and kind of take cues from, because they, you know, it's an established brand. So some of the design cues came through the way that the client wants to push it. You know, hopefully we were able to improve on previous work. But. As in the concepting. Well, in this case, it was scheduled for 3 weeks. But like I said, the whole thing was done in 9 weeks. So our build happened basically at the same time. So we worked very closely with the 2D side. So pre-production and kind of actual kind of digital production happened at the same time. I'm not sure. I think that was probably an agency decision. I mean, I think the idea is it brings the whole thing back into the real world. You know, it's supposed to be, obviously it's a fantastical tale, but you know, the idea is that it's a real problem, or it's a real solution to a real problem, I suppose. You know, we've obviously tried to, all the framings and all the posings have been directed to kind of keep it in that fantasy world up until the end, where, you know, it is still trying to sell a particular product. How often would we check in with the client? It's really up to the agency most of the time. The advertising agency will, you know, show the client, you know, when they feel it's ready. I mean, the director, our immediate client, the agency, the directors will be having fairly consistent conversations with, showing them work in progresses. Obviously what I've shown you is a kind of a snippet for the amount of work that actually was created. Work in progresses, there's a constant animatic running, and as we go, refining the edit, refining the animation that's gone into it. So hopefully week on week they see a progression. Whether that necessarily goes to the final client is an agency, up to the agency. I think there are technical aspects to it. Lighting something inside an enclosed space using the render we chose was difficult. We're designing a full CG world, which obviously we're trying to make a beautiful piece. When you're trying to design a full character set and an environment, it all has to fit together. It all has to work as one. That's a challenge in itself. And like I said, we put out so many concepts, and we really explored all the characters. And from that point, they go into 3D, and then there's further refinement that's always needed. Not through any lack of skill of anyone. It's just the transition from 2D to 3D. You just have to make certain things don't come through. So. There's simulation, there's particle, or there's kind of particle simulation, there's cloth simulation, there's, I think from all the shots were quite short, like I mentioned, so to try and get all these kind of really good poses, which really demonstrated how the character was feeling at that possible time. You don't have a long time to kind of really describe in her motion or what's being said, because there's no voiceover, or there is a voiceover, but nothing that she's actually saying. There's multiple challenges all the way through, creatively and technically. Again. Yeah, sure.
How Cif helped Sleeping Beauty shine. Sleeping Beauty was rudely awakened. Her prince was arriving. Things were looking good, but the floor less so. With no time to fill a bucket, she summoned new Cif Express floor cleaner with its powerful cleaning agents. Applied directly from the bottle, the dirt disappeared quickly and the beauty returned, leaving her time to be reawoken by the prince. New Cif Express, always a beautiful ending, quickly.
Is there anything else? Tom, one of our talent coordinators, is doing his HR presentation basically now. So if you've got any questions from that line, then head to room 2, I think it's seminar room 2.